It's milking time at this dairy near Lismore.
Come on, it's all right. They won't bite. Come on, quick.
Lee Sherman guides her girls through the morning ritual.
She can be tested though. She wasn't right last time, but...
A few months ago, North Coast dairy farmers were confronted by an unprecedented crisis.
That night was, you couldn't prepare, being absolutely helpless, not being able to go down and help them because the water was so deep.
The February flood was catastrophic. Cattle floated out to sea. Valuable genetic stock was lost. Homes were inundated and machinery ruined.
You can't truck, 200-300 cows out in a couple of hours. It doesn't work. You can't get trucks in, it's too dangerous. So, yeah, to watch your cows float away and your quad bikes and everything that's in your shed, even though the flood was the 28th of February, things have not improved. If anything, on dairy farms, things have got worse because of the continued wet weather.
Lee Sherman has been forced to make tough decisions, including culling half her herd.
There's no fences left out there, it's only the perimeters, but that's where all my young stock were, and it's just so wet. It was too deep, yeah. So they weren't happy, and that's, yeah.
It's hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And then the continual rain ever since has really taken a toll on their health. And that's hard to watch. Yeah.
For the third generation dairy farmer, this year has been the most challenging of her life.
Financially, your milk production has halved. So your costs have gone up, your milk production has come down. And I do worry what the northern dairy industry is going to look like by the end of winter. It is a catastrophe. The whole of this region is devastated, and it's everything is just so hard. It's hard to get anything fixed because you haven't got a lot of your support systems and your businesses in Lismore. So it is, and it's an ongoing disaster that isn't going to go away quickly. This region is going to need support for a long time.
It's not just dairy. The region's beef cattle herd has also taken a massive hit in these floods. Around $120 million has been wiped from the sector through stock losses and asset damage. Here at the casino sale yards, producers are trying to sell some of the stock they still have. They're not confident there's enough feed left in soggy paddocks to keep them through winter.
The season's been one to forget for the soybean industry too.
It's a real tragedy the way this year's unfolded so far. So that's what we're kind of looking at the moment. You can see the colour contrast in the two.
Ross Larson operates a food and stock feed manufacturing plant near Casino. The family-owned company employs more than 30 people. What's been left of this year's rotting crop is being rejected.
This is currently what's being stripped by some farmers who are just trying to salvage any type of cash flow they can. They're pretty desperate.
At this factory, local legumes are processed and sold around the world. But this year, it's a different story.
I think in the Northern Rivers here, we've probably lost between $30 and $35 million of crops. And from a value-added perspective with manufacturing, probably an additional 20 on top of that.
It's big numbers, isn't it?
Oh, it is big numbers if you put it into perspective, how that flows out into the economy. When you start to see commerce start to grind to a halt, that affects everyone who owns a takeaway shop through to, bigger companies like this. I get concerned, we really have to think about our staff and their welfare and their mental side of things. But it's every shop that you walk into in Casino, it's every shop you walk into that's left in Lismore. Everybody's affected, you can see it. It's like there's a hangover from the floods that just can't be lifted at the moment.
That hangover is causing more than a headache.
With all of the follow-up rain that we've received, we're definitely going to get at least 80 to 90% of the farmers will not be able to get a winter crop in. They physically cannot get on the country. You'd need a hovercraft to be able to farm a lot of it.
He believes things are getting to the point where there's going to need to be serious government intervention. But he's not impressed by the government support given to growers in his industry so far.
I think the kindest word would be confusing. Confusing would be the only way I could really put it at the moment. We're not actually sure what is really available. There's been talk from different levels of government about support packages coming in. We've had a medium-sized grant come along for up to 200,000 that's available. For most companies, that 200,000 is really not going to make any difference whatsoever. There's a bespoke tailored grant that's apparently becoming available. No one can really get the guidelines around that. You need to have a minimum of 200 people employed. There's only really 2 companies in the Northern Rivers that have that type of volume of people in the agricultural, say, processing sector. That rules companies like myself out.
On the coastal floodplain near Woodburn, widespread destruction is still visible. Sugarcane, normally known for tolerating stagnant water, couldn't handle 2 major floods and 3 months of continuous rain.
There's a lot of acreage being just killed. Us personally, I think we've lost about 220 acres of year-old crop. Yeah, we don't know what the future holds.
Jeff Gollan chairs the Woodburn Cane Harvesting Cooperative. He says the February flood left rubbish littered through paddocks and it all has to be removed before harvesters can attempt to salvage the crop.
Well, this is a major problem that we're going to have throughout the harvest season, is what they call an orphan rubbish. It's a big worry. It's not only this sort of irrigation pipe, we've got logs, we've got fuel tanks, and most anything that would float out of the backyard of somewhere, we're going to find it in our blocks of cane. Yeah.
The financial cost is rising. Around $4 million worth of equipment at this cooperative had water through it, and replacement machinery is in short supply.
We were lucky enough to secure 2 tractors. Well, we think we have. I think they're still on the boat. We lost the 4 that we ride off. The others, the boys in the workshop, they've got most of the gear going, our infield bins and a couple of harvesters. We've had water through them.
What's keeping you motivated?
Good question. A passion, I think. A lot of farmers, they love the lifestyle of farming side of it, but in these conditions it does get a bit trying.
The 65-year-old is slowly coming to terms with the scale of the losses, and not just in the paddock.
The cane harvesting community in our local area, they've all lost homes bar 3. I think we've got 27 members. Their main objective at the moment is to get a house for their family to live in, and the farming side of it is really going to come secondary until they've got somewhere to put their family. Yeah, so it's taken a toll on the individual grower, their families. Sorry.
It's okay. Beyond the farm gate, 3 of the cane cooperative-owned mills were damaged, including this operation at Broadwater, where the damage bill is expected to exceed $30 million. The Richmond River floodplain is also a growth corridor for the macadamia industry. More than 250,000 trees have been planted here over the past 5 years. At Dungaruba, Mel Casanega planted 10,000 trees to help scale up her orchard near Lismore.
We started farming with the design that we are on a floodplain, and we put checks and balances in place to work with that.
Trees were planted on 40-centimetre mounds, in theory to allow floodwater to drain off.
So we came out of the first flood okay, we were full of optimism, we were thinking 20% loss, but then it rained and rained and rained, and the second flood came in, and we had water over the block again for another 10 days. That one flood wasn't as big, it was below the 54 level by 20 centimetres, but the water just really hung around. All the tributaries back down to the ocean, I guess, were still pretty blocked up from the first flood. The water just wasn't moving.
5,000 trees, half of what she planted, were killed.
We've looked at this as a really long-term venture for us. It's not a development, it's our family's future, and we've tried wherever we can to take the road to the greatest outcome for the future rather than a shortcut. Yeah, we've just had that real focus on setting up for long-term, and it's a bit devastating.
While the macadamia industry counts tens of millions of dollars in losses and 150,000 trees now skeletons in the floodplain, Mel Canegrowers is ready to step back in and do it all again.
Now we're seeing it as a challenge to get it back there again. Yeah, we're getting trees organised now. Tomorrow we start doing a bit of tidying up here. We won't plant till spring, but we can certainly get the soil in really great shape between now and spring, ready for that spring planting.